Welcome to the experience of the Triple T Josie Gray Show, where truth and transparency in life's challenges bring help, hope, and healing.
Listen now as Josie tells the truth about personal growth and spirituality, relationships, health, and finances.
Tell the truth, Josie.
Thank you for joining the Triple T Josie Gray Show. As they stated, I am Josie Gray. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. Well, today we want to talk about, is your promise worth your process? Let's talk about Joseph. Now, you all know I typically use scriptural basis for everything I talk about. Joseph was a young man who had a dream of ruling over his father, his mother, and brothers. Yet, after being promoted in Potiphar's house later on, after he had been sold by his brothers, and then they lied and told his father that he was killed, here he is in Potiphar's house, and Potiphar's wife approaches him and tries to get him to sleep with her. Well, she lied on him, and then because Joseph refused to sleep with her, he found himself later on put in prison at the request of Potiphar. Now, here's the thing. After being in prison, he helped someone else get out because of the giftings that God had given him. But then that person forgot about him once they got out, left him without hope. Here's the thing. Here's a question for you. What do you do when you determine in your heart to raise the standard of integrity that you live by, do what's right, yet you still seem to end up getting tricked, played, bamboozled, let down, disappointed, misjudged, false accused, straight up lied on, and lied to? What do you do? Here's the thing. A number of ladies always say, honey, God promised me I'd be married. I know I'm a wife. My husband and I will have a multi-million-dollar business, girl. Or someone else says, well, we're going to have a mega ministry and we're going to do this and we're going to reach tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, etc. Then someone else says, oh, well, we're going to travel the world, baby girl. But you never, ever were told about the process. Pause. Joseph was not told about the process when God gave him those dreams. God never told him what he'd have to go through. God never told him the challenges. God never told him the pain. God never told him the false accusations. But God told him the promise. So let me ask you this. What process did you have to go through, or are you going through? Here's the thing. Were you ever told about the physical, emotional, verbal, or abusive relationships when you had the vision or the dreams or the goals that you wrote down about you and your husband or your husband-to-be or your spouse? Were you ever told about the failed marriages you would go through before you got to the right one? Here's another question. Or maybe it was just one marriage. Who knows? But here's the thing. What about, were you told that in the process of dreaming about that multi-million-dollar business, were you ever told that you were going to have 13 eviction notices? What about that car being repossessed? What about losing your job? What about being lied on your job, and even though you could prove the truth, you weren't even allowed to tell the truth? You were let go. You were given a pink slip. What happens when life deals you a tough, hard blow? Was it included in your manual that you would go through a heart attack or disease, cancer, God forbid, AIDS? Was there anything that God told you about concerning your health before you got to that place in having a healthy body, or before you got to that place where you no longer had high blood pressure or high cholesterol, whatever the situation or the case may be? Here's the thing. I want you all to understand that your particular process molds and chisels you into becoming who you were designed to be. But here's the but. It does not define you unless you allow it to. Somebody says, well, Josie, I've had a few definitions of what define means. What do you mean by define in this example? In this example, I want to mention to you define being, the definition of define being marked or set the boundary of a thing. In other words, what you've gone through does not have to cause limitations for you. It does not have to put boundaries around what you can and what you cannot accomplish. It does not have to put boundaries around how high you want to reach for the stars or reach for your dream, or how high you want to set your standards and set your goals. It does not have to put boundaries on what you choose or feel is best for you when it comes to where you live or what you drive, who you decide to be with. It does not have to put boundaries on you unless you allow it to. Here's another thing. Your past or your process does not have to conclude your dreams. It's not the end. In other words, baby, it ain't over until God says it's over. And many times we go through things, we go through life, we go through challenges, and we feel like it's just the end. If you walk away from a job, or you lose a home, or you get evicted, or this is your career, you built up a business. I was talking to someone not long ago who was a CEO and founder of a company. Unfortunately, they ended up partnering with someone they trusted. And because they trusted that person, they ended up where the person kind of turned everything around, made it where they ended up losing their stake in the business and their glorified vote. In other words, they lost their ability to hold on to what they had. Ultimately, that person ended up leaving that company that they started. Hard work, sweat, tears, and and don't forget the finances that they put in. They lost that company, that partner that they once trusted, took over that business, swindled them, lied to them, cheated on them. And they were originally very good friends. Now, that doesn't always happen, but this is just an example. Here's the point. Just because you may have lost that business, or you may have lost in that divorce, according to what you thought it should have turned out to be, or you may have lost in trying to get that promotion when you know you deserved it. Now they're asking you to come back and train that person. Here's the point. We got so many examples, but here's the thing. I want you to remember, no matter what you've gone through, it is not over until God says it's over. So today, I want to begin to conclude by saying this. Dream again. Don't stop wherever you are. Whatever you do, write your goals again. Write your visions again. Sometimes we end up being shifted out of one area only so that God can shift us into another area. And this is the last thing I want to say about that. Personally, I lived upstate in the state that I live in, but I ended up moving because it was like everything that I had my hands on that was once progressive and really, producing what I was looking for it to produce, it just shut down on me. First thing I said was, God, why? What about this? And what about that? God, I got to take care of this. And I kept telling God what I had to do. But I took a long time to finally say, but what do you want? Many times we end up having to lose things, lose particular relationships or things that we own, whatever it is, whatever the case is, however it applies to you. We end up having to lose things so that God can give us what he wants for us. We don't have the roadmap to our lives. We try to control everything. But here's what happens. When we try to control everything, we end up sending ourselves in another spiral, another loss, and we're further away from where we want to get to, right? So today I want to encourage you. I want to ask you, is your promise worth your process? Well, this concludes today's episode of the Triple T Josie Gray Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe and share with others if this show is impacting your life. Our contact information is below. Also, please know that I am open for speaking engagements. You can reach me right there. We will see you next week. Thank you again for joining us.